everybody. How's it going? Thanks for having me. This is my 4th Mackinac conference. Before I used to come as an intern on campaigns or as a college Republican, so it's kind of cool being back in here doing a presentation about Google. So quickly about me, I've been with Google for about 2 years, worked mainly on their political marketing. I work with campaigns, issue advocacy groups, on their online presence, that, anything for fundraising, mobilization, persuasion, messaging, any of that. But I wanted to start, hopefully some of you have seen me around the conference with the Google Glass on. I want to talk about it a little bit, and then afterwards I'll be around for demos, or if you see me around the conference with it, feel free to ask me to check it out. So what it is, it's essentially a computer on your eye, right? It does a lot of the things your phone can do, but you don't have to touch it. And I've seen Sergey Brin, who's one of our founders at Google, talk about this at some of the TED Talks out there about how are humans actually made to be holding their phone in front of them and essentially sliding their thumb or their finger across a piece of glass all day long with their face down, not really interacting with folks. And that was something really interesting. I thought it resonated a little bit with me. So some of the things we can do on it, take a picture, we can record video, I can ask it questions and it'll give me a response and talk to me behind my ear. It can give me directions, I can read my email, I can make phone calls, I can read my text, send text messages. So I'll do a quick up here just to kind of show you what it, how I would use it and how, if you see me talking to myself at the conference, why I'm doing it. And then we'll show the video right after. So the side is a touchpad, and it basically activates using it. So right now it's on, it shows me the time, and then below it, there are some words that activate the prompt for different options in the menu. So, okay, Glass, take a picture. So I now have a picture of everyone that was sitting right in front of me. So then the option here is I could share it on Google+, which is one of Google Plus's networks. I can share it. I believe Facebook and Twitter and a bunch of other organizations have started building apps on top of this as well. Some of the other options, if you guys want, we can do a quick video and you can, say hi or something like that. But okay, Glass, record a video. So right now it's recording everything that's in front of me. Got some waves. I have to make sure to upload this to my Google+. Done. Done. And it gives me a little beep. So can we do a quick, unfortunately I couldn't show this, but if we can do a quick video on what it looks like, that'd be great. And these guys are way better than I am at it.
Okay, Glass, record a video.
This is it. We're on in 2 minutes.
Okay, Glass. Hang out with the Flying Club.
Google photos of tiger heads. You ready? You ready?
Right there. Okay, Glass, take a picture.
That is awesome.
Okay, Glass, record a video!
After this bridge, first exit.
Stay delicious and Thai.
Arroy.
Arroy.
Google jellyfish.
Well, let's see.
So they covered the really cool things you can do with it. And a lot of times folks ask me why is Google doing stuff like this? It doesn't really fall into some of the marketing stuff. I think for something like this, it's awesome working for a company that truly cares about what's happening in the world, and they think they can make the world a better place through technology. And actually, it happened twice today. Once I was looking up that video earlier today, and then I was actually on the Grand Terrace, or the Grand Hotel's terrace, and ran into someone who was talking about how this, he works with a spinal cord injury, a group out of, I think, Troy, Michigan. And there's a great video on the YouTube Glass page about how folks with spinal cord injuries could use this to send emails and communicate with people and just kind of change the way that they're living. So when we're thinking about these types of products that are huge and that some people question why we're doing it, I think it's for situations like that. So I'm happy to give you guys demos afterwards. Find me. I'm going to take them off right now so I can talk a little bit more about the marketing side of the world at Google. So there we go. So for years, the marketing model has really been we speak through traditional advertising, television, radio, print. We being advertisers, vendors, anything like that, are sending their message out there, and we want you as a voter or as a consumer to vote for something or buy something. For years, it's worked really well for folks. But the world's gotten a little bit more complex. Times are changing. I always use this image because I think it's sitting with my family at home when I come and visit. Like, this is us in our living room, right? The television's on. Maybe you're watching a little bit of it. You have your phone out. You have your tablet. You have your computer in front of you. I mean, I have 4 roommates in DC. This is definitely us every single night. So you're fighting for folks' attention now. And for the first time ever in 2013, the amount of time that Americans are spending online surpassed the amount of time per day that people spend watching television, which I think is pretty remarkable. And what you'll notice here is that, technically all the other things, they are declining a little bit, but it's not that they're massively declining. So what I see when I see this chart is that you are fighting for fragmented attentions of voters and for consumers, so it's important to figure out a way to get your brand message out there. And despite that picture, I would also argue TV has technically left the living room. The number of, how many of you guys have DVRs at home, right? You DVR the show, you fast forward through the commercials, and you watch it on your own time. That's increased 52% of folks have DVRs. 38% increased the amount of time spent with digital video from May of 11 to May of 2012. This is really changing the way that marketers and campaigns and issue advocacy groups have to interact with voters and with constituents. And people are getting their information in a ton of different ways. So you go to Google to look at content, you go to YouTube to watch video, you watch Hulu for some of your TV shows. I know a lot of folks that get their news from Colbert Report or The Daily Show. You've got folks that go to New York Times or HuffPo. So there's so many different ways to capture information. On the social side too, Facebook and Twitter. And so the concept of different screens outside of just television for your marketing is extremely important. And I believe this was off of Nielsen last year. They looked at how light TV viewers versus heavy TV viewers and how those demographics interact. So light television viewers tend to be younger, they tend to be more diverse, college education, income levels over 100,000, and heavy TV users, looks like over 7.3 hours, tend to be older, high school education, lower income. And so this looks a little confusing, so I'll walk you through it real quick. The users who are on these other screens that are watching less television are the ones that are more politically and socially engaged. So it's important to come up with a message and a marketing strategy that incorporates multiple screens. When I talk about multiple screens, it's desktop, laptop, phone, making sure that you're across all these different devices. So the dark blue line in these are all the lightest television watchers. And the different sectors are different political engagements. So on the last two, you'll see active in a group that tries to influence public policy or attended a political rally. The folks that watch the lightest amount of television were more likely to do those two things, compared to the general population. They're also very high on engaging in fundraising and writing or calling a politician. So these are the people, my point here is that the people that are watching less television are also the people that you're trying to reach for political organizations and for advocacy groups. And they're super active online. It's maybe coincidental, I don't know. Those folks that watch the lightest television are posting and commenting online. They're watching online video, and they're getting their news from websites, from YouTube, from social posts on Facebook and Twitter and Google+. So I guess, what does that mean for a political organization or an issue advocacy group, or even just generally a brand marketer? I would argue that campaigns are generally like brand marketers. We have to change the way we approach marketing and reaching out to constituents and potential voters. And so Procter & Gamble, I think in the early 2000s, came up with this concept of first moment of truth when you're selling something. And so you would see for Procter & Gamble brands, they were really considering, inside of stores, when a consumer walks in, is there something flashy or something that captures their attention that gets them to buy that specific product? And that was the first moment of truth when they made the decision to buy or not to buy your product in the store. So if we rewind, or if we fast forward to the zero moment of truth, that's something Google's recently coined. That it's not, that the zero moment of truth is when a user or a voter or a constituent or a consumer sees your ad on television, or they see your ad online, they watch a video, or they see a social post, and that triggers them to then search or find out more about your brand, your candidate, your issue organization on Google or on any, or just look up more information about that specific product or that specific campaign or that specific candidate. That zero moment of truth, that person is raising their hand and saying they want to have a conversation with you. And it's an opportunity for campaigns to get their message out there at the moment that people are asking about them. So I think in like a lot of marketing classes, they always have different letters and acronyms and all these things. And I'm borrowing this from one of our VPs, who I saw gave a great presentation on the 5 Ps for digital success under this new, under the zero moment of truth. So it's pulse, pace, precision, participation, persuasion. I'll run through each of these real quick. So for pulse, if you think about pulse, there's a lot of, and we talked a little bit in the past panels, there's a lot of data out there. And there's some marketers, that will say that the more data, it's tough to filter through the noise, and they would rather just ignore it than have to deal with it and make decisions. On the Google side of it, and hopefully, with a lot of our folks that we work with on the campaign and advocacy side, we're on the glass half full side of this. We want you to learn more about that data. You can learn so much more about your consumer and your voter by analyzing this data and spending time trying to figure out what's going on. So being able to listen and respond. Know what people care about. There's this tool called Google Trends. If you ever are bored, hop on it, just search it on Google, where you can see general search interest on different keywords that you put in. So I think this was today or yesterday, I typed in there immigration reform and healthcare reform and looked over the past year or so the trends in the United States on immigration reform and healthcare reform. And you see that people are interested in this. Maybe there's certain things that spiked it. I think around healthcare reform was that huge spike was the Supreme Court decision. Immigration reform was more recently after the election. So what to do with this information when you see something spiking? You find you're figuring out what people care about. You have a pulse on the electorate or your consumers or your brand. Figure out a way to respond, right? So I work with marketers on their advertising. What you see here is a Google search page, and kind of enhanced here, there are 3 ads above the organic results. And whoever typed in comprehensive immigration reform was trying to start a conversation and learn more about comprehensive immigration reform. So it's an opportunity for these 3 organizations who are serving relevant ads on Google to get their message out there. So that was pulse. Pace, and I think pace and pulse go together really well. They, hand in hand, and it really fits back into that advertising. When we work with folks, we always hear, we're scared to try something out. We want to know exactly what we're getting. We don't want to test anything. Like they just get really nervous, and they want to wait for perfection. And I think that's an error that a lot of marketers or campaigns wait. If they're waiting till perfection, you might miss out on an opportunity. So influence in the campaign cycle actually starts earlier than you think. In the more than a year out, about 11% of folks had already decided who they were going to support, and you can see all the statistics up there, and it kind of turns the traditional thoughts on their heads that people don't really know till later on in the game. So what this tells me is that you have to start earlier if you're a brand, if you're a campaign, if you're an issue advocacy groups, and we've seen this across all the groups that I work with, and I think there's I didn't work with the Obama campaign last year, but I think they did a great job of this. I'll give them credit. Early on in the campaign, I think it's pretty well known that they defined Romney and they defined Paul Ryan when they knew about him very early on. If you read some of the articles and books about it, it was surprised they started advertising in July. And it wasn't just advertising on television. They were defining Governor Romney across multiple platforms. So if a user went on to, they saw an Obama television ad about outsourcing in Bain, they then went online and searched more about Romney outsourcing, and had that ad about the exact messaging that they saw in the television ad was also there on the search ad to get there to reach folks at that zero moment of truth. More of a non-political example that I've heard of, and kind of goes back to this concept of speed beating perfection, and then when you wait for perfection, you might be missing out on an opportunity. Betty Crocker launched an app, and I believe it was around sharing recipes and downloading new recipes, and it wasn't beautiful, it wasn't perfect, but they knew they had this idea and they wanted to launch quickly and get users. So I believe it was 81.8 thousand users that they got for their app early on. Kraft launched a beautiful app 6 months later. A lot of folks, if you read some of the things, the app actually was probably better in terms of design, better in terms of features, but it was 6 months later and they were waiting for perfection. So one of the takeaways I use with this is that speed concept really beats perfection. Precision. So you saw the ad with comprehensive immigration reform and having something relevant to what that user is searching show up on Google in the top advertising spots. You want to be precise when you're thinking of your marketing. Make sure you're answering the questions that users are typing into Google and getting your message out there. So outside of search, you want to be, I think for precision, the most important thing is relevancy. So you want to be relevant across multiple platforms, not just search. So part of what Google does is work with campaigns and marketers on finding the right spots on the internet to show your ad. So this would be an Obama example on the New York Times around pets. And so the ad is about pets. So they're connecting that, folks that are on this pet page see the pet ad, pet lovers for Obama. Similar, we own YouTube. There's also video content that have you guys been on YouTube before? Raise your hands. Yes, great. You've seen like an ad before a video, but probably. The way that we've worked with a lot of buyers that they really are specific about they want to buy TV like they want to buy online like they buy television. So the concept of news-related content is really important in the political and advocacy space. So this was a pre-roll ad for a group in DC that when I was sitting at my computer at the office popped up on an AP ad that I was watching. I was like, well, this is actually precisely the perfect targeting that they probably were looking for. Participation. We talked about it in the last panel as well. I think for brand marketers, some of the worst things you can do is, and when I talk about brand marketers, it's campaigns too and advocacy groups, but is not respond to criticism and not engage with people in your brand. So, I give Uber a lot of credit. I use them all the time in DC. A few times, if you guys are familiar with Uber, it's a taxi service. I've had a few bad experiences where I tweeted and they responded to me immediately. And that takes a lot of, that's great for them and it makes me loyal to their brand. Both campaigns did this through Google Plus Hangouts. If you're not familiar with it, it's a video conferencing tool that Google has through Google Plus, one of our platforms, where they're able to engage with voters on a personal level and then post it on their YouTube page for people to watch later on. So Governor Romney was taking questions from folks on different issues during the campaign. President Obama, I believe this one's from a White House, I believe this is a White House hangout on patents, I want to say. So it was 3 minutes. He just hopped on, I think he worked with the Google Plus team, I'm sure, on this, and took questions from people. And not everything was positive. You know, obviously, like a town hall, you want to check some of the questions, but you also want to have that conversation. If it's all one-sided, you know, I don't think it's the best type of marketing material you can have out there. So I think for both of them, they took questions where people had tough questions for them. And then finally, persuasion, kind of tying it all together. What we've seen for on the brand side, at least for some of the folks that have done a multi-screen campaign, so they've done television, and they took these ideas and put them on their desktops, on laptops, on mobile, and then they had the search advertising that was relevant, the pre-roll advertising on video that was relevant, the banner ads that were relevant. What we've seen is when you're engaging across multiple screens, you're getting a 24-point bump in recall for whatever that message is that you're pushing out there through your marketing campaign, and a 17-point bump in engagement. And I believe this was, I want to say, based off of a Volvo study where they were testing television and television plus other mediums, and then it did a pre and post poll on what that looked like in the 2 different markets they were testing this. And it's something that I'm working with advocacy groups and campaigns to make sure that they're using these types of multi-screen approaches, and I think it's important for activists to understand what's out there for folks to be able to use. I don't know how I'm doing on time, but to quickly wrap up the marketing side of this and the 5 Ps to digital optimization under the 0 moment of truth. Pulse, get a pulse on your constituents, be in touch, understand what's going on, what's important. Pace, don't be afraid to test. Do it fast. Speed beats perfection. Precision, obviously be relevant to what folks are looking for, what they're engaging with online. Participation, exclamation mark, I love the participation one. Invite people in, make sure that they're engaged with your brand, you're responding, there's back and forth, people will feel more loyal. And then persuasion, tying it all together and making sure you're running a great multi-screen campaign. That's everything from me. Thanks for having me.